woman didn't flinch, just studied her with a calm, clinical gaze. "You came back," she said. Nora swallowed. "Do I know you?" "You should." She exhaled smoke. "But that's not your fault." "Who are you?" The woman smiled without warmth. "Dr. Evelyn Rourke. We worked together, here, for years." Nora blinked. "We... what?" Evelyn gestured to the house. "You won't remember until your brain lets you, but you'll feel it. The closer you get to the truth, the harder it'll be to run." Inside the house, the scent of aged wood and dust filled Nora's lungs. The walls were lined with books, old photos, and, most chillingly, sketches of the spiral symbol. Dozens of them, some in charcoal, some scratched into the wooden floor. Evelyn led her down a narrow hallway to a locked door. "This was your room," she said, "before the incident." "What incident?" Instead of answering, Evelyn handed her a folder. Nora opened it with trembling hands. Medical records, her name at the top. Diagnosis: dissociative amnesia, triggered by complex PTSD. Below that, session notes in tight handwriting, subject initiated. The forget protocol voluntarily after exposure to the event. Symptoms include intrusive visions, panic attacks, and persistent identity confusion. Strong emotional suppression present. Unclear how much is self-protective versus pharmacologically assisted. Nora looked up. "You did this to me?" Evelyn lit another cigarette. "You asked me to." That night, Nora wandered the vineyard grounds alone. The wind had a sound to it, like whispers buried under static. Her fingers brushed the bark of a twisted vine, cold, wet, familiar. In the distance, she saw someone standing by the tree line, the man in the gray hoodie. She moved toward him, heart pounding. "Who are you?" He didn't speak, just pointed behind her. She turned. A cellar door sat half submerged in the ground, wooden with a rusted latch. She hadn't noticed it before, but it was right there, waiting. She stepped closer and felt it, that sickening churn in her gut. Like the air around it knew her name. The door wasn't locked. Her hand shook as she gripped the handle. She opened it. Darkness greeted her like a memory. The darkness in the cellar wasn't just the absence of light. It felt alive, thick and breathing, pressing against Nora's skin as she stepped down into the damp, narrow staircase. Each wooden step groaned under her weight. The air turned colder. The smell shifted. Mildew, iron, something faintly chemical. She kept her hand on the wall to steady herself, fingers trailing over old stone and peeling paint. At the bottom, a single light bulb dangled from the ceiling, flickering like a heartbeat on the verge of failure. She pulled the chain. The light revealed a small, concrete room, and in the center, a chair, straps on the arms, leather worn from use, a metal tray beside it holding a syringe, an old tape recorder, and a cloth soaked dark with something dry and reddish-brown. Nora's breath caught in her throat. The room vibrated with something awful, something deeply hers. She crossed to the tray, picked up the recorder. Her fingers trembled as she hit play. A scratchy voice, hers, came through. "If you're listening to this, you broke the protocol. You went back." "Jesus, Nora, why would you go back?" Silence. Then a deep breath. "Okay. You wanted the truth. Here it is." More static. Then the voice returned, quieter now, as if it were afraid of being overheard. "You volunteered for the memory suppression after the incident with Owen. That's his name, the man you keep forgetting. He was your patient, but it went wrong. Real wrong." Nora stumbled back, heart pounding. "Patient?" She climbed out of the cellar in a daze. The sun had begun to set, an angry red slicing through the trees. Back inside the house, Evelyn sat at the kitchen table with a glass of wine and a manila envelope. Nora slammed the recorder on the table. "Tell me what I did to him." Evelyn didn't flinch. "You were part of an experimental trauma therapy program. You treated patients with complex dissociative disorders using immersion exposure, memory confrontation. It was controversial, unregulated. And Owen?" Evelyn hesitated. "He didn't survive it. Nora's throat dried. Did I kill him? You never laid a hand on him, Evelyn said. But you pushed him too far. You triggered something. He relapsed, became violent. The spiral was his symbol. It represented the collapse of identity. He started carving it into walls, into himself. He thought he could spiral out of existence. Nora's hands trembled. Why don't I remember any of this? You couldn't live with it, so you made the choice to forget. Evelyn slid the envelope toward her. Inside were photographs. The same man from the motel, Owen. But in some, he looked healthy, smiling, sitting in a therapy chair, writing in a journal, and then images of a destroyed therapy room. Blood on the floor. A shattered mirror. Police tape. In the corner of one image, Nora, curled on the floor, face vacant. That night, Nora dreamt of spirals. They twisted across her vision, pulling her down, down, down into something unspeakable. And in the center of the spiral, Owen, not dead, not alive, just watching her, whispering her name. She woke up screaming. On her arm, written in marker she didn't remember using, was a single word: liar. Morning came like an accusation. Too bright, too loud. Nora sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the word on her arm. Liar. The ink was smudged, like it had been there for hours, like it was written while she slept. But she was alone. The doors had been locked. No broken windows, no signs of entry. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been there. That someone still was. She scrubbed the word off with shaking hands, then stared into the bathroom mirror and remembered something. A scream, not hers. A hallway filled with mirrors. And Owen, covered in blood, weeping as he pressed his forehead to her shoulder, whispering over and over, "You said you'd stay." She found Evelyn outside, pruning dead vines with cold precision. "I need to see the therapy room," Nora said. Evelyn didn't look up. "We sealed it." "I don't care." They walked in silence through the far barn, where a newer structure had been hidden behind false walls. Evelyn produced a key from her coat and unlocked the door. Inside, chaos preserved. In amber, the blood on Nora's hands wasn't hers. The man slumped in the motel bathtub, fully clothed, his eyes open but lifeless. Looked vaguely familiar, but she couldn't remember his name. Her breath hitched as she spotted something scrawled on the mirror in red lipstick. Stop digging. She had no memory of what happened the night before. Only one thing was certain. Someone wanted her to forget. And she was starting to think that someone might be herself. The first thing Nora Malone noticed when she woke up was the weight of silence. Not the usual suburban morning silence she was used to back in Baltimore, the kind interrupted by birdsong, distant lawnmowers, or the hum of coffee makers. No, this was sterile, padded silence, like the air had been vacuum sealed. Then came the smell, chlorine, old soap, something coppery underneath. She sat up, disoriented, heart racing. Thin motel curtains let in strips of gray daylight. Her head throbbed with the kind of pain that felt earned, like a punishment. On the nightstand, her phone blinked with low battery, but it wasn't hers. And then she saw her hands. Blood, still tacky, dried in the creases of her knuckles, beneath her fingernails. Panic surged. She stumbled to the bathroom, each step loud, on the cheap linoleum floor. That's when she saw him. The man was lying in the tub, fully clothed in a navy jacket and jeans, head tilted unnaturally against the porcelain edge. His eyes were open, staring, empty, his skin waxy, dead. Nora stumbled back, hitting the sink, gagging. Then she saw the mirror, written in red lipstick, a single phrase. "Stop digging." She backed away, heart pounding in her ears. Her breath came in short, panicked gasps. She looked at her reflection, hair matted, mascara streaked, a bruise forming on the side of her neck. She didn't know where she was. She didn't know who he was. And worst of all, she didn't know if she had killed him. 2 hours later, Nora sat in a diner off Route 5, fingers trembling as she sipped burnt coffee. She ditched the bloody hoodie in a dumpster behind the motel, cleaned her hands as best she could. Her wallet had a Maryland license with her name and face, but she had no memory of ever being there. A waitress with kind eyes asked, "You okay, honey?" Nora managed a nod. The news played softly on the corner TV. Nothing about a dead man in a motel. Yet, her phone buzzed. She picked it up. Unknown number. "You need to come home, Nora, before they find out." She stared at the message. Typed back, "Who is this?" No response. Then her screen lit up with an image. A selfie. Her, smiling. Arms wrapped around the man from the motel. Time-stamped 2 days ago. She dropped the phone like it burned her. Outside, a man in a gray hoodie stood across the street watching her through the window. He wasn't blinking, and Nora suddenly knew someone was following her. Someone who knew exactly what she had done. Or worse, what she had forgotten. Nora left the diner with her heart hammering against her ribs. The man in the gray hoodie didn't move, didn't follow, just watched. Eyes like winter steel. She turned the corner fast, nearly slipping on the wet sidewalk. Her boots, cheap and scuffed, weren't hers. She didn't remember buying them. She didn't remember a lot of things lately. Across the parking lot, she spotted an old Corolla. Keys had been in the pocket of the hoodie she'd dumped. She had no idea if it was hers, but the key fit. The engine started. She drove. Miles blurred by. As trees gave way to barren fields and telephone wires, Nora gripped the wheel harder. Her mind fought for clarity, but every thought slipped like water through cupped hands. She needed answers. She needed a place she could think. But more than anything, she needed to know if she was running from someone, or from herself. She stopped. At a gas station 2 towns over. The girl at the counter barely glanced up. Nora grabbed a burner phone, cash from the ATM using a PIN she guessed correctly on the 3rd try, and a map. She felt like she was moving through a life she had only half lived. She found a quiet spot, behind the station. Dialed the number from the text. It rang once, twice. Click, a voice, male, calm, low, answered. "You weren't supposed to remember yet." Nora's chest tightened. "Who is this?" A pause. Then, "You're not safe, Nora. Not from them. Not from yourself." "What the hell does that mean?" "You asked to forget. We honored that. But you didn't follow the rules. You went back." She swallowed hard. "Back where?" He hung up. That night, she checked into another motel. Cash only, no ID required. She studied the selfie on the borrowed phone. Her face was smiling, but something about her eyes looked hollow. The man beside her was the one from the bathtub. His name still wouldn't come. She zoomed in on the background. A sign over his shoulder read, "Whitlock Creek Vineyard, family owned since 1967. Whitlock Creek." She circled it on the map. 4 hours south near the Virginia border. Nora didn't sleep. At 3:17 a.m., headlights swept across her window. A soft knock followed. She froze. The knock came again. Slow, deliberate. She crept to the door. Peeked through the peephole. No one. Then, a voice muffled but clear. "Nora, you left something behind." She backed away. Tripped over the motel chair. When she looked again, nothing. Just an empty parking lot. In the morning, there was a note under her door. Slipped through during the night. "You have 6 days left. After that, the memories stay. All of them." Scrawled beneath it. A symbol. A circle. Inside it, a spiral twisting inward like a drain. Something inside her recoiled. She had seen that symbol before. In dreams. On drawings. On the inside of her arm, long since scrubbed off. She didn't know why, but she knew this. Whatever was waiting for her in Whitlock Creek was the reason she asked to forget. The road to Whitlock Creek felt like a descent, each mile pressing heavier on Nora's chest as if her ribs were slowly collapsing inward. The trees grew denser, darker. The sunlight thinned out, swallowed by gray clouds and skeletal branches overhead. It was the kind of place where time didn't just slow, it curled in on itself. By the time she reached the town, the gas gauge was almost empty. A rusted green sign welcomed her. Whitlock Creek, Pop, 312. She rolled through empty streets. Antique shops, shuttered diners, a single stoplight that flickered yellow in a windless sky. Everything about the place felt paused. She followed the map to the vineyard. The Whitlock Creek vineyard sat on the outskirts, past a row of weeping willows and a rusted iron gate. Grapevines stretched in gnarled lines across dying soil. The main house was a colonial relic, peeling white paint, black shutters, crooked porch steps. A woman in a long gray coat stood smoking at the edge of the field, her eyes hidden behind dark glasses. Nora parked and approached cautiously. The floor was stained. The mirror on the far wall shattered, cracks radiating from a central point like a spider web. Cushions torn open. Pages from notebooks pinned to the walls in frantic disarray. Every page had the spiral, and one phrase repeated again and again. "I remember what you made me do." Nora turned slowly, goosebumps rising. "Why did I come back?" she asked softly. Evelyn's voice was hollow. "Because you never fully forgot." That night, Nora stayed in the room, alone. She read the notebook pages one by one. Owen's handwriting shifted over time, neat and legible at first, then wild, frantic, erratic. One entry struck her like a slap. She says the spiral will save me, that if I go deep enough, I'll find the truth. But what if the truth is her? Another. Nora thinks I'm ready. I'm not. I see her in the spiral now, not as my therapist, as something else, something watching. The air grew heavier. Then came the sound, a soft dragging across the wall. She turned slowly. One of the spiral sketches was missing. In its place, a new one, drawn freshly, still wet. She stumbled back. "No," she whispered. "No, I didn't." But she had. The charcoal was still on her fingers. Her body remembered what her mind had buried. Near midnight, she replayed the old recorder again. This time, she let it run past the cutoff point. Her voice, again, quieter, unhinged. "I don't think I helped him. I think I absorbed him. I think I made his madness my own." Pause. "And if I'm right, then I don't know which one of us is in control anymore." The recording ended. Nora stared at the darkness beyond the cracked mirror. Then she saw it. A shape behind the glass, moving, watching, not her reflection. Something else. Nora didn't sleep. She couldn't. She sat in the therapy room, arms wrapped tight around her knees, the broken mirror looming like a gaping mouth, watching her own reflection twitch and flicker in ways her body hadn't moved. Every so often it would smile, just slightly, just enough to make her question what was real. At 4:12 a.m., she heard footsteps overhead. She hadn't told Evelyn she was staying in this room. She stood slowly, eyes on the ceiling. Then the whisper came again, closer this time, right behind her ear. "You said you'd stay." She spun around. Nothing. But on the mirror, fresh again. Condensation from her breath revealed new writing. "She made me stay. By morning, the hallucinations, if that's what they were, didn't stop. They sharpened. Objects weren't where." She left them. A light bulb exploded overhead while she stared at it, and every time she blinked, Owen's face flashed, smiling, bleeding, broken. She returned to Evelyn, pale and shaking. "You didn't tell me everything. You left something out." Evelyn said nothing, so Nora pushed further. "Why was I in that chair in the cellar? Not him. Me." Finally, Evelyn looked up. Her eyes were tired. Too tired. "You weren't just his therapist," she said. "You were the trial's final phase, the memory integration. We didn't just ask you to forget. We asked you to contain." Nora stepped back. "Contain what?" "Owen," Evelyn whispered. "What was left of him." The truth came slowly. Owen had dissociative identity disorder, severe. But instead of trying to isolate his alters, Nora had proposed something radical: total integration. A theoretical model that suggested a fragmented psyche could be recombined into a surrogate vessel, a blank slate, a controlled mind. Her mind. The spiral wasn't a symbol of collapse, it was a funnel, a process. The therapy had worked. Too well. Owen had died in that room. But not all of him. Some of him, the worst parts, had stayed. And now, Nora was remembering what it meant to be two people in one body. That night, she returned to the mirror. One last time. This time, she didn't see herself at all. She saw him, clear, crisp, standing behind the glass like a memory with weight. His lips didn't move, but his voice rang in her head like a scream underwater. You promised to hold it. You said you could carry me, then louder. Let me out. Her hands moved on their own. Charcoal in hand, she drew the spiral on the floorboards, over and over, her breath coming in gasps, her body shaking. When she looked down, her arms were bleeding. But she hadn't cut them. The spiral had etched from within, from him. In the morning, Evelyn found the room destroyed again, but Nora was gone. Only the mirror remained, and in it, two reflections. They found her 2 days later, barefoot and silent, walking the train tracks 10 miles south of Whitlock Creek. Her clothes were soaked. Dried blood down her arms. Her eyes, vacant but alert, like someone watching a storm through a window. She didn't fight the officers who detained her, didn't speak. Not until they took her to the hospital. That's when she asked for one person. Dr. Evelyn Rourke. Evelyn entered the psych ward under a gray sky. Nora sat on the bed, hands folded, staring at her own reflection in the metal tray across the room. You found me, Nora said softly without looking up. Evelyn nodded. Where did you go? I needed to know if he could live without me. And? Nora turned to her with something strange in her smile. He can't. Silence filled the space between them. Heavier than any words, Evelyn stepped closer. Tell me what you remember. Nora closed her eyes and remembered everything. It had started with compassion. That's how Owen got in. He wasn't a monster. Not at first. He was broken, childlike, traumatized beyond reason. And Nora, ambitious, idealistic, believed she could help. The spiral therapy wasn't just metaphor. It was a process of mental absorption designed to fuse identity fragments from one subject into another, temporarily, safely. But Owen wasn't safe, and neither was she. In their final session, something ruptured. His personality flooded into her like a virus, wild, screaming, desperate, his guilt, his rage, his sorrow, and she welcomed it. Because deep down, she believed she could fix him by becoming him. But it wasn't a merge. It was a possession. I didn't just forget, Nora whispered. I buried him. And part of me went with him. That's why I came back. To find yourself? Evelyn asked. Nora shook her head. To let him out. That night, the hospital security camera footage caught something they couldn't explain. 3 a.m. Nora sat up in bed, walked to the mirror in her room, and began speaking, but not with her voice. Low, male, shaky. Owen's voice. I'm sorry I stayed so long. Then silence. Then Nora's own voice again. Then go. Her hands moved deliberately. She pressed her forehead to the glass, just like he used to, and then she smiled. Not Owen's smile. Hers. Whole. Terrible. Beautiful. They found her dead the next morning. Peaceful. No struggle. No sign of violence. Cause of death. Cardiac arrest. But on the mirror, drawn in condensation from her final breath, was one last spiral, and in its center, a word. Free.